Next, we're going to have my friend Debbie Yones from Voices of Hope for Aphasia. I am so glad that she's part of the conference because I think aphasia is something that needs to be addressed and something that needs to be spoken about because I think people just don't even know what it is. So welcome, Debbie. I'm so happy you're here and we're making it through the storm.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm glad that you didn't have to use the recorded video.
Me too. I had people sending me all sorts of things last night. It was very interesting. But I'm glad you're here. So I am going to step out and let you take the floor.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me. I am Linda. I'm unable to share my screen. Can somebody do that for me? I will do a little bit of introduction here as hopefully somebody can give me a sharing screen. My name is Debbie Yones. I am a speech pathologist by trade. I am also the executive director of Voices of Hope for Aphasia. We are a nonprofit based in the Tampa Bay area, providing services to people with aphasia and their families. Thank you. And today I'm going to talk about supporting communication. So aphasia is a language disorder. I'm going to teach you a little bit about it, but we're going to talk about how you as caregivers can support loved ones who have any sort of communication issue. All right, so communication disorders can happen due to a number of things, and so hopefully this will help some of you, even if you're not caring for somebody with aphasia specifically. So somebody with Parkinson's can have difficulty talking because of the strength in their throat, right? And other movement disorders can have that as well. People with dementia will start to lose the ability to find the right words and communicate in the right way, or maybe even understand speech. People with autism certainly can have communication disorders. Communication disorders can happen due to brain injuries or a stroke, either due to the weakness of the muscles to generate speech, or a disruption of language, and a lot more. So today I'm going to talk about aphasia specifically, but the tools that we use for aphasia apply to any communication disorder. Why am I focusing on aphasia other than it's what I do? For two main reasons, because it's been in the news a lot recently, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And also because it is so common that you probably know someone or are taking care of somebody with aphasia and may not even know what the term is, which is a big frustration for me, because if you don't know what your loved one has, or if you don't know what you have yourself, it's hard to look for services for it and resources for it. All right, so by way of a little bit of aphasia education, I mentioned that it is so very common. So looking at the prevalence of aphasia in the United States, so you'll see Alzheimer's unfortunately affects very, very, very many people, just shy of 6 million people. This is 2019 statistics. But if you look at aphasia, this line here at about 2.5 million is a conservative estimate. It's more likely closer to 4 million. But very few people know what aphasia is. But if you look at Parkinson's, look at it in comparison. Conservatively, there's more than twice as many people living with aphasia than there is Parkinson's. We know what Parkinson's is. ALS, which got a big boost in visibility and awareness because of that ice bucket challenge, but it doesn't even register on this scale here. And MS. So even if you put Parkinson's, ALS, and MS all together, there are still more people with aphasia than all of those together. But less than 14% of the population knows what it is. Hopefully that number is increasing due to some of the media exposure that it's been getting, but at last count, it was still not a good number. So let's look at the statistics. For those of us that are here in Florida, specifically in Pinellas, we're looking at over 7,000 of our neighbors in Pinellas County are living with aphasia every day. And these aren't hospitalized people. These are people who have been released back into their home and are living with aphasia. In the Tampa Bay area, over 23,000. For those of you across the country, like I said, it's about 2.2, 2.5 million, but really it's probably more like 4 million people living with aphasia in the United States, because these numbers are due to stroke only. But oh, I think my slides are out of order. Let me go to my next slide. So I said that those numbers are due to stroke only, and a stroke is the main reason that somebody has aphasia, but it could also happen due to a brain injury, or due to a tumor. And in some cases, though this looks like a tiny little slice, it's probably more than this, it's unreported, due to a form of dementia that starts with a loss of language. It's called primary progressive aphasia. But these, the majority of them that I refer to as sudden onset aphasia, are the major contributors to aphasia, where a degenerative kind like primary progressive aphasia or other types of dementia that start with a loss of language are a smaller component. So now I am going to go to my prior slide. As I mentioned, the aphasia has been in the news recently, and thankfully it is raising awareness of aphasia, not nearly enough, but most recently the actor Bruce Willis stepped down from acting, and his family announced that it was due to a form of aphasia. Representative Gabby Giffords has also been raising awareness for aphasia. She made a movie called, oh goodness, the name of the movie just escaped my mind. Maybe a type of aphasia. Gabby Giffords won't step down, something like that. Won't back down, and she has aphasia due to a gunshot wound, and she is advocating for gun control. But in this movie, she also talks a lot about her struggles with aphasia. And you'll see across here, there's a lot of celebrities right now that are making aphasia more known in through their celebrity. We have some celebrities locally as well. If we have time at the end, I might play this little video to show off some of the members of Voices of Hope for Aphasia. All right. So a little bit more aphasia education for you, so that if you are working with somebody with aphasia or love somebody with aphasia, you have a little bit of a deeper understanding. I only have an hour. I would talk to you for 15 hours about aphasia, but just to touch the surface. The definition is that aphasia is an acquired language disorder. It is acquired due to one of those etiologies that we talked about in the prior slide, meaning you had language normally, you were using it, working productively, you were maybe taking your language for granted a little bit, but then something happened. You acquired a disorder of language. And what does language entail? Well, language, yes, it means speaking, which is the most obvious form, but it can also, language is made up of understanding spoken language, of reading and writing. In a very simplified definition of aphasia, or rather, let me talk about this too. Aphasia in itself is a loss of language, but it is not a loss of intellect. So a person who has aphasia is still smart, still knows things about the world, still remembers things that happen to them. They just can't think of the words to express themselves. So the definition of aphasia is specifically the language component. Now, it is true that if somebody has had a stroke or had a brain injury, other parts of the brain may also have been affected, and therefore some of these things may also be impacted. But the term aphasia strictly refers to the language issue. And again, this dumbed down definition or similarity that I can give to explain what it is. Maybe we all took Spanish in high school, or maybe French. I'll use a less common language. We learned French. We learned French in school, but we haven't used it, so we don't know very well. But if suddenly I dropped you into a little village in the middle of France where nobody spoke English, and you only had access to a few of those words that you remember from high school, are you any less intelligent than you were the moment before I dropped you? No. Are you any less aware of how the world works and your place in it? No. You didn't suddenly lose your memory of everything. You just don't have access to language in order to express yourself in the way that you would like, or understand what people are saying to you. Or if they hand you the newspaper, well, it's in French. It's not the language that you know. So you can't read, and if somebody gave you a pen, you certainly wouldn't be able to suddenly write in French. So aphasia is a language disorder. You have a disruption in your ability to speak, understand, read, and write. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of difficulty speaking and difficulty understanding through a couple videos. And this is where we'll focus because it's maybe the most obvious. If you know somebody with aphasia, or if you are working with somebody with aphasia, or caring for somebody with aphasia, I will go way deeper into this. We have some education workshops, but let's just touch a little bit on the surface. I think another reason why aphasia is not understood and not known by very many people is because it can present itself in very different ways and in very different severities. We, as speech therapists and in general, categorize aphasia, even aphasia that it comes due to a form of dementia. We categorize them in two main types. The first main type that I'm going to show you here is called non-fluent aphasia. And it's for a person who talks sort of in chunks. They may be able to say one or two words at a time or short phrases, but they're not speaking easily in a sentence. And they work hard to say those words. So for example, a person with aphasia may say, go store you. So you see it's mostly nouns and verbs and none of the little grammatical parts of speech that we use normally. So I'm going to give you an example of a person with aphasia. Hopefully you can see this video. Linda, jump in if it's not working. And I'm going to fast forward it a little bit.
Can you tell us your name?
Mike Caputo.
And Mike, when was your stroke?
I was 7 years ago.
Okay.
And
what did you used to do?
Worked on a desk, seven sales and worldwide, and very good. Yeah.
Okay. And who are you looking at over there when you turn your head?
That's my wife.
Okay. And why is she helping you to talk?
She's a speech.
So you have trouble with your speech?
Yeah.
And what's that called?
Aphasia.
All right. And so why don't you work now?
I do.
And what do you do now?
Voices of Hope Aphasia.
And what is Voices of Hope?
I always let the video go to that point for the plug for Voices of Hope for Aphasia. Mike Caputo is the founder of Voices of Hope. He and his wife, who was just off screen, started Voices of Hope for Aphasia because Mike had a stroke when he was just 51 years old. He was on the elliptical machine, which I stay away from now because it's
Yeah.
And that may be a lesson in not using the elliptical. But Mike, if you notice his speech, he is talking in chunks. So he said something like worked, Autodesk, sales, worldwide. So those are really content heavy words, but he didn't string them together in a sentence. But Linda, since I have you on the line, or anybody else, if you want to jump in and answer questions as I ask them, put them in the Q&A or the chat, and Linda can read them to me. Does it look like he understands the questions?
So I just got a text here that says, most definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. He understands. Does it look like he knows the answer? Does it look like he knows what he wants to say?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike's comprehension is strong, but certainly what he wants to say and the message that he has and the knowledge that he has of his job is still intact. He just doesn't have access to the language to express it the way that he used to.
So
All right.
would a
Yeah.
lot of people with aphasia maybe do like computer work because they don't have to speak for it?
Okay, that's a brilliant question, Linda, and I'm going to touch on that in just 1 second. And if
Okay, great.
if I forget to, ask me again.
Okay.
All right. So this is one form of aphasia. This is non-fluent aphasia. Mike talks in chunks. He struggles and gropes for the words, but he understood what Megan, who was asking the questions, was saying to him. There is another type of aphasia that is called fluent aphasia. And a person with fluent aphasia may say many words. And if you're not paying attention and you may be hearing it in the background, it might sound like they're talking in sentences. And it might sound like, well, I went over there to the Prable area and then it was really different and I couldn't really tell what it was. I mean, I just don't know. So all the grammatical words are in there. It's coming out easily. The person doesn't struggle to make the words, but gosh, they really didn't say anything. I've heard phrases like word salad, a lot of words, but not a lot of meaning. And in the case of a severe fluent aphasia, it may not make any sense. So let me play an example of fluent aphasia. I'm going to do the same thing, jump it ahead a little bit.
Hi, Byron. How are you?
I'm happy. Are you pretty? You look good.
What are you doing today?
We stayed with the water over here at the moment and talked with the people for them over there. They're diving for them at the moment. They'll save in the moment. He'll water very soon for him. With luck for him.
So we're on a cruise and we're about to
We will sort it right here and they'll save their hands right there for them.
And what were we just doing with the iPad?
Right at the moment, they don't show a darn thing.
With the iPad that we were doing. Like here?
I might change for me and change hands for me with Happy. I would talk with Donna sometimes. We're out with them. Other people are working with.
All right. So Mr. Byron has a very different type of aphasia than Mike Caputo, if you notice. But some same questions. In this case, does it look like Byron knows what Megan is asking?
No.
No, you're right. In this case, Byron has comprehension issues. What's coming in isn't mapping for him. So when she switched the topic and she asked something very specific and she said, what are we doing with the iPad? He didn't track that change of topic. He didn't understand the question. And this is a problem receiving information.
Somebody just said he looked like a confused child.
Yeah, so that's a good description, right? Unfortunately. But what I want to impart, so thank you for that comment, because that's what the appearance is. So with education, Byron is dropped in the middle of a country where he's not understanding the language and he's talking to everybody in English and they don't get what he's saying, right? So he's talking, the words don't make sense, but does it look like that there's something that he's wanting to tell us?
Most definitely.
Most definitely. We don't know because we're not there. So thankfully, Megan gives us the context. They're on a cruise ship and he's looking out the window and he's seeing everybody out at the pool having a good time. And that's the message that he wants to convey to us, although we can't understand it, right? He's not getting access to the words to express what he wants to say. And unfortunately, in the news recently, you may have heard people talking about auditory processing issues. If that input of language coming in can't be processed, it's a part of aphasia and a component of what Byron experiences. The message that's coming in isn't mapping to something that makes sense to him, but he is still smart. He still has information that is important to him that he needs to convey. And he is a productive member of his family, even if he can't go back to work. But we need to be able to support his expression and his comprehension, which is what we're going to talk about today.
So somebody just said that must be very frustrating for him and for his wife. Or is it just frustrating for his wife? Does he realize that people do not understand him?
Byron is the most happy-go-lucky guy I have ever met. So he is able to sort of set aside some of that frustration just because of his personality, but it is exceedingly frustrating. Again, if I put you in the middle of that country where you don't speak the language and nobody is understanding what you're saying, pretty soon you're gonna just feel isolated and frustrated and angry.
You're gonna stop talking altogether.
And you're gonna stop talking altogether. You're gonna stop going out. You're gonna stop and talking to friends and family. It's very frustrating. It's very isolating. So yeah, it's tough. Now, this type of aphasia, and Byron has a severe form of this. This type of aphasia, the fact that he can't understand what other people are saying, he also doesn't realize that his words don't make sense. So the only way that he realizes that he's not making sense is when nobody is responding to him in the way that he is expecting. So he's saying something and nobody's understanding. Yeah, he's saying it again and nobody's understanding. So it is frustrating, absolutely.
You know, I met this gentleman a while ago and he has aphasia and he has a business card. And on his business card, it says, I am not drunk and I am not stupid. I have aphasia.
Absolutely.
And his wife said that has helped him so much more with frustration because then people understand there's an issue.
Yeah, exactly. Just thankfully in our society, sometimes we have patience and sometimes we don't. But thankfully in our society, the vast majority of people, if you say, I have an issue, please bear with me, they will.
Yeah.
So we equip all of our members. And if any of you are working with people with aphasia or love somebody with aphasia, let me know. I will send you one of those exact business cards that says, I have aphasia. Please be patient with me. I have trouble talking, but I'm not drunk.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Do you know what it takes for any of us to make one single sentence? This very confusing and technical chart only just scratches the surface. And I'm not going to go through it. I'm going to give the layperson's version of it. For any of us, these are the steps that we go through in order to say any words. First, we have an idea, something that I want to say. So next step is that I have to find the words that map to the idea of the thing that I want to say. Now I have to put those words in the right order in order to express the idea that I have in my head that I want to say. Now I have the words that are of the idea, they are in the right order, but now I have to put them in grammatical structure for the language that I'm speaking. So that includes conjugating the verb, making sure that the plurals and singulars are connected, that my pronouns are connected, that all of the interconnected words, the if, and, or, but grammatical structure is there. So now I have a sentence that is grammatically correct in all its forms, in the right order for the words of the idea that I want to say. Oh, now I have all the words in my brain. I still not uttered a single thing. Now I have to start making the sound. I have to take the first word of this grammatically correct sentence in the order of the idea that I want to say. The first word is the. Okay. I have to think about the sounds that make up the word the. Okay. Two sounds, and what order they go in. Now I have the order of the sounds of the first word of the sentence that is in grammatical correct. I'm holding all of this in my brain, and I still haven't uttered the first thing. Okay, the first sound of the first word is th. How do I make that sound? I have to put my tongue between my teeth. I have to turn on my voice box and start to make the word th, the sound th. I have done all of that work, all of that brain process for most of us in the blink of an eye, less. And all I've done is said, I haven't even moved my mouth to make the sound for one word. This is all the work that our brain does in order to talk. And we do it without thinking of it. Well, brain is thinking, but we're not aware of it. If there is damage to our brain in the language center, it could impact any of those bits. So I could have done finding the words, putting them in order, finding all the grammatical structure, getting the first word, finding those sounds that are there, and starting to go to make that sound. And my brain won't put my mouth in the place. My brain won't connect and talk to my mouth. So I've done all of that work and I can't get it out. Or I know the words and I've put them sort of in order, but I don't have the grammatical structure anymore. That part of my brain is got hit. So I talk like my computer. But I'm doing all of this work. I have a brain injury of some sort, and I'm doing all of this work, and I have all of that, and I'm getting ready to start the word the, and somebody else talks. I have just lost all that work. I have to do it again. That is what a person with aphasia goes through, just to say one sentence. This is what we go through in order to understand spoken words. So it starts by getting the sound waves coming into our ear, right? We process the sound waves, our ears are fantastic and our brains are fantastic, and they start to figure out, this is the sound for the, followed by, that's the word the, I'm parsing out the words, I'm putting them together. Now I have enough words in order to start to have the concept. And again, those of us that don't have a brain injury do it without thinking about it. You're listening to me right now, making a whole bunch of words. A person with aphasia, a person with any communication disorder, any language disorder, again, may have damage at any of these parts. So again, I'm listening. If it's going too fast, then this process, I don't know what you said anymore. It was too much and it was coming too fast, and I missed the important stuff. That is what a language disorder can do. So to answer your question, Linda, language is not just speaking, the output of information. It is not just understanding the input. It is also the input and the output that are reading and writing. So if Linda, I put you in that village in France and you can't speak French to me, or you can only speak a few words, but I give you a pen and I say, here, just write it down for me. I'll write it in French. I'll understand. Well, if you don't have the language, then you're not going to be able to write. Right. Or if now this is not exclusive, because it is an acquired language disorder. This is why I defined it in the beginning. I have some basic knowledge because I knew the language beforehand. So perhaps I have a word or two that I can eke out. Or if I'm reading, I learned how to read as a kid So some sight words are retained. Even if I can't read the newspaper, I can see one word and I can process that. Or if I'm having difficulty understanding what's said to me, because it's going by too quickly or I'm missing it. I don't know how many of you turn on subtitles if you're listening to a movie, maybe a British crime drama, which I'm hooked on. I turn on subtitles because I speak English, but the accent sometimes throws me off. So together with listening to it, I read it. Somebody in the news recently was using closed captions to aid understanding. So I can still use some components of it, even if on its own reading doesn't work.
Can I read sign language?
So you're asking such brilliant questions, Linda.
Okay.
So sign language is a language structure. So a deaf person who communicates by sign language can have aphasia, even if they don't speak a single word, because their language structure, ASL, in the case of most Americans, is disrupted in the same way. I don't have access to the sign that is the word that I'm trying to use. Now, we can use gestures, representational gestures to help. So drinking is going to be universal to all of us. So this may be retained, but the structure of ASL is also gone. Any other brilliant questions, Linda, or anybody else?
The only comments people are really making is they never understood such frustration, or they just didn't really understand the basis of any of this.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Which is why I am so grateful, Linda, that you invited me here to talk about this, because it's either, whether it's aphasia, which is very, very common, and probably several of you are thinking, oh my gosh, I had an uncle who had a stroke and had trouble talking. I didn't realize it was this. It was this. But it applies to any sort of communication disorder, and all of them are frustrating.
Yeah.
All right. So guess what? Now you get to feel how frustrating it is. I'm going to put you through a couple aphasia simulations, but I'm going to also check my time here. Okay. So I am going to try to give you a little bit more of an understanding of what it might feel like to be in the shoes of somebody who has aphasia.
Okay.
So we're going to do some simulations. And again, so normally I do these either live or on a Zoom session where I can see you. So I encourage you please to throw it into the Q&A or the chat, and then Linda will tell me, because I'm going to ask you some questions afterwards. All right. So the first thing is that I'm going to give you difficulty understanding. So you're going to be a little bit like our friend Byron. You're going to hear a paragraph. It's going to have different language errors in it. Obviously, I can't suddenly actually give you aphasia, but I'm going to simulate it by making the errors, but I'm not making the errors. You are hearing the errors, if you get what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I'm going to read it the first time pretty quickly. Then I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then I'll read it a second time with two changes, two tips that I want you to be paying attention to, because these are two easy things that you can do if you're working with somebody who has difficulty understanding. Ready? I'm going to stop my share so you can listen to me closely. I need my reading glasses. Okay. The act of breathing for speech, as one might suppose, is more complex than the automatic and regular breathing that sustains light. Both inspiration and expiration are active in speech. The breathing cycles become considerably more irregular. Inspiration is shortened and expiration lengthened. Breathing for speech is an interesting example of an overlaid function, that is a function that is added to a younger and more basic biological fasting. Breathing is closely related to the soul behavior of the body, altered emotional reactions, breathing, and consequently speech. In fact, emotional states like Michigan and attitudes are often betrayed by characteristic changes that take states in speech.
Oh my God.
What was that paragraph about?
3 people just said to me, what is breading?
Yeah. What is breading?
Breading and oh, wait a minute, I'm reading it. And what's Arizona have to do with it?
Okay, Arizona or Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, goodness. So some of you are thinking that the paragraph is about bread. You heard the word breading, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you started thinking about, oh, are we talking about like veal parmesan or something? Are we cooking?
Right.
And so you start to establish a context for yourself for the rest of the words to relate to cooking, right?
Yeah.
Bread and some chicken. But did the rest of it make sense?
No,
Mm-mm.
not at all.
For everybody, put into the chat. Yeah, what other
Seem to
things?
get faster and faster.
Yeah, it got faster and faster. What percentage of the paragraph do you think you understood?
None,
None. Anybody else?
none.
5%, none.
Another one says, I still don't even know what breading is.
Still don't know what breading is. All right. How many of you, this is the one and only time you're allowed to admit this, how many of you stopped listening to me? I don't know what she's saying. It's garbage. I'm not going to listen. Right? I can't follow.
Somebody
Sometimes
said I did, but I didn't want to admit it.
that's okay. In this one and only case, it's okay.
Because they were honest.
Yeah. Can you imagine if somebody goes through their life hearing garbage like this all the time? They do start to retreat. Can you imagine sitting at a dinner table with 5 of your friends and none of it makes sense? They're talking about breading, but what the heck?
But what
Right?
is it like occasionally when you're with your friends and everybody's talking at the same time?
Yeah.
You're like, what the heck? I'm not even going to say anything else.
Right?
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So I can't imagine what it must be like to be surrounded with that all the time.
All the time. Yep. So it's frustrating. But there are things that we can do as their conversation partners, as their loved ones,
Yeah.
that can make it better.
Okay.
Right? All right. So I'm going to show you 2 ways, and I'm going to reread the paragraph to you, and hopefully we might not solve all the world's problems, but it hopefully will make a little bit more sense. All right. I'm going to give you the key word. Today, we're talking about breading. Okay.
Wow.
I'm going to talk to you about breading. The act of breading for speech, as one might suppose, is more complex than the automatic and regular breading that sustains light. Both inspiration and expiration are active in speech. The breading cycles become considered more irregular. Inspiration is shortened and expiration lengthened. Breading for speech is an interesting example of an overlaid function. That is a function that is added to a younger and more basic biological fasting. Breading is closely related to the soul behavior of the body. Altered emotional reactions, breading, and consequently speech. In fact, emotional states like Michigan and attitudes are often betrayed by characteristic changes that take states in speech.
Wow.
So what are the 2 things that I did that I changed?
You was slower.
I slowed down. Yeah, absolutely. And what was the second thing that I gave you at the beginning?
The other person, somebody just said, I think you looked at us more.
Yeah. Okay. So it's true. I did more than just 2.
Okay.
So the 2 that I wanted you to notice particularly is that I gave you the context. So I gave you a second modality to work out what the topic was.
Okay.
So I didn't just rely on you being able to understand what I said, breading. I wrote it down and you could say, oh, I'm hearing breading, but she wrote breathing, right?
Yeah.
The new governor of Pennsylvania, I think they've called it, uses closed captioning in order to give him a second way to process what he's hearing. I just gave you 1 word, but with that 1 word and slowing down and putting pauses in between, now what percentage of the paragraph do you feel like you got?
Well, you could understand a whole lot more when it was slowed down.
Yeah.
1. And I think when it's slowed down, you're better able to process it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. slowing down, allowing a person with aphasia or a communication disorder or dementia or anything that is disrupting neurologically, slowing down and providing pauses in order to process what they have heard or experienced is key. The second thing for the language disorder is writing things down or pointing to things, giving a second clue to
Yeah.
be able to piece things together. Those are, yeah.
One woman said that after my husband's stroke, wait a minute, people would come to the house and they wouldn't really pay attention. They would say that I was the only one that understood him. Now, I do believe part of it is because I knew him very well, but I had to explain to them, just slow down and look into his eyes when you're speaking to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, I'm going to show you a video in just a second that sort of highlights that if we as communication partners, so your friends who would come over, if they just changed their approach and took a little bit more responsibility and onus on the communication to take a little bit more burden on a successful conversation, then we can lighten the frustration, lighten the isolation that the person with the communication disorder has.
Well, I think anybody that's having friends comes over needs to watch this video, because when you have a better education and you can understand better what's going on, then you can do better.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why this is an education session that I give frequently. Even people in the street, I
Yeah,
stop them and say, hold on.
your passion.
Yeah. So yeah, those are fantastic. And eye contact, and that's such an important one. And I don't have it in this presentation at all, but it is critical. And you saw me doing it. I do it naturally. If you are making eye contact, there's so many clues and information that we can glean from somebody, which is why I find it difficult to do these webinars, because I can't see any of you.
I
So
know. Yeah.
no, and that's fine. I understand why, but eye
Yeah, I
contact
get it.
is so important. Yeah. Okay.
It's like
So-
when I tell a joke, nobody laughs.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Linda knows I'm an actor and I thrive on getting some sort of feedback. So,
Yeah.
so now I'm going to give you again a little example, a little taste of what it might feel like to have difficulty reading. Okay, so I'm going to show you something that is very, very common, something that we have to do every day on our own to feel independent and adult and, you know, have power over our own life. But if a language disorder suddenly hits you, how debilitating it can be. All right. I'm gonna, again, like the other one, I'm going to show you something, then I'm going to ask you a couple questions. You probably know what this is. Let's take a look at it. All right. So your daughter just came by and dropped off their 4-year-old, your 4-year-old grandson, and she said, "Hey, thank you so much for watching Teddy. I'm going to go out, but he's not feeling very well, so please give him this," and hands you this prescription, and goes off. How much do you give your 4-year-old grandson?
None.
None. Maybe.
I'm too scared.
Too scared. Yep. Uh-oh. Now you're not. How about for you? This is your medication, and you have to take your pills, but you have a blazing headache today. Can you take it if you have a headache?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm scared.
I'm scared. Either I'm going to skip taking my medications, danger, or I have to rely on somebody else to tell me my medications. And probably so many of you are portioning out your loved one's medications, putting them in the little cups, doing all of that for them, a thing that as adults we do for ourselves, but suddenly I can't even take my own medications.
Well, when you look at it this way, it makes so much more sense.
Yeah,
No.
and maybe you don't want to give up the control. And maybe you're in denial about the fact that you don't know. And you just, I know how much I need to take, right? I know I
Yeah.
can do this.
Yeah.
And our loved ones are doing that, and they don't know. And it's because giving up the control, every little step that we have to give up as we have a disorder is horrifying.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So the good news is, like I said, and for the person who was talking about their husband who had a stroke, there are ways in which we can support conversation, and we're going to talk about some of those.
Right.
And I'm going to highlight the power of supporting communication, supporting comprehension, supporting expression by showing you 2 videos. The first video we're going to watch is a doctor and our friend Jerry, who has aphasia. They're talking. The first video, the doctor has no specific training in talking with a person with aphasia. Then he goes off and he has a couple days of training, and he comes back. The same doctor comes to talk to Jerry, and we'll see what a difference there is in the conversation. Now, I'm going to, and one huge disclaimer here, these videos were made when the dinosaurs were still roaming the earth. They are very old, they are very grainy, but they are very impactful, so I continue to use them. So bear with me with the fact that it's very grainy, and you may need to turn up the volume on your computer to hear it. I will do the same. Here we go.
Can you tell me your age? How old are you? Just want to say to get a feel what you can understand. Do you think that you can understand everything that I say? How long has it been now that you've had difficulty? Is it more than 2 years? Years. Could it be still on you?
All right. Just a few questions here. What did you notice about Jerry's demeanor in this? Jerry is the gentleman with aphasia.
If someone said I'm crying right now, it's breaking my heart.
Right? Oh, it's such a hard video to watch. And that's why I keep using this one, because it really conveys that. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody said it doesn't seem like he can understand any of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that somebody said maybe if the doctor put up fingers like counting when he asked, maybe that would help.
Yeah. Yeah. So great answers. The doctor was very patient. My goodness, more patient than any doctor I know, certainly. But you're right. He didn't help in any way, right?
Yeah.
Didn't put up fingers. He made eye contact, which was good. Does it seem, I think you just answered, does it seem like Jerry understands anything that the doctor is saying?
No.
Probably not. And now if his family or medical decisions needed to be made based on this interaction, do you think this doctor would believe that Jerry is capable of making decisions about his own healthcare?
No.
No, they would totally exclude him, right? Oh, he doesn't understand. He can't give us an answer.
Somebody just said, I am very embarrassed to say this, but when I used to go and talk to my uncle, and I couldn't understand him. I felt better when he stopped talking.
And that's okay. And I know don't feel embarrassed. We aren't given these tools. We aren't educated on communication disorders nearly enough. People are discharged from hospital, especially during the pandemic, because the staff just doesn't have the ability to, based on productivity requirements, spend the time to really go through this. And there's not a good method for this information right now, unfortunately. The first thing that we have to think of when we're in a medical setting is people's safety. Are they swallowing safely, or can they eat? Are they going to fall? Those are the things that take priority, and unfortunately communication falls by the wayside. So please don't feel embarrassed. That's why I'm here. And maybe the next person that you meet with aphasia, you can
Someone else just said, I know sometimes people that have dementia have a bracelet. So if they go to a hospital or something, the people know that they have dementia. Do they have that for people with aphasia too?
Yeah, many of our members wear bracelets with aphasia, but again, they're not given it. You have to think of doing it as a family member. And if you don't know what aphasia is, even if it's in your own house, you wouldn't know. Unfortunately, the speed at which a hospital moves, even if somebody has a bracelet, oftentimes it's sort of, it's dismissed, or the staff isn't able to implement what is required to communicate effectively with a person with aphasia. But that's my problem. I have to educate more and make sure that the staff feels
Exactly.
empowered. Yeah. So now we're going to watch those two people again.
Yeah.
And the only thing that has changed is that the doctor has gone through some training and he has changed. Jerry is the same guy. All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
How old are you, Mary? You're, let me try to remember, are you more than 60 years old? No. More? You went down. More. You are 60. So, Jerry, you're 60 years old. No more, no less. Okay. Some questions I asked you last time didn't work very well. Do you remember? Yeah, it didn't work well. So this time it's going to work. Okay. Something happened to you years ago to cause the communication problem. A stroke. Yeah. Yes. So your right side doesn't work very well. Do you write with that hand, with the right hand? All right. You live here? Yeah, you live in Toronto. In Toronto. You know this book better than I do. But now you live in Toronto. So you live in Toronto. You live in North York. West. Yeah. So you live west of Toronto. Yeah. Are we talking about Etobicoke? Yeah. That's fine.
All right. Same questions. This time, what did you notice about Jerry's demeanor?
He looked a whole lot more comfortable.
Yeah, he was engaged, right? Well, he didn't maybe didn't make us cry like he
Yeah,
did.
one of the participants said he even smiled.
Yeah. So now tell me, what did you notice about the doctor's communication? style.
In the first video, the doctor was kind of looking at the table instead of looking at Jerry.
Mhm.
And the second one, he looked at him more. He actually touched his arm. You
Mhm.
know, I think by doing that, he more welcomed the conversation with Jerry, where before I think Jerry just felt uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah. I think they both felt uncomfortable, right? The doctor was
Yeah.
probably uncomfortable. What tools did you see the doctor use to support both comprehension and Jerry's expression?
Somebody just said, it seems like he knew that book.
Yeah, yeah,
And when he saw that book, Jerry knew that or assumed that some of what the doctor was asking him, the answers were in the book.
yeah, absolutely. So it's probably a book like this, a communication book. This is a generic one. Ooh, you're seeing the pile of garbage that I have over there.
I'm sorry.
This communication book, this is a standard one, but there are ways in which a booklet can help as a communication device. And Jerry knew to turn to the maps so that he could point to where he was saying that he's from.
Right.
So yeah, did it look like then he knew what the doctor was asking him?
Yes.
Yeah, he knew what the doctor asked.
Somebody just said, I have a client that answers what you want to hear due to his aphasia, but doesn't maintain the cognitive ability fully afterwards. I'm continually telling ALF staff to slow down and wait for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I don't know this person specifically, so I can't say
Right.
specifically for them, but unfortunately, a language disorder can look like a cognitive disorder, can present as, and we assume that they don't know, or that they don't understand, or that they have memory issues, and also can mask it. So maybe there is something going on, and
Yeah.
gets lost. So all of these tools, though, are helpful regardless of whether or not there's a cognitive disorder. Time, extra supports, pointing, writing. Because the doctor used more of these tools, it empowered Jerry to use the tools. So
Yeah.
Jerry was pointing at the paper. Jerry told him to give me this communication book because I can tell you this way. Jerry was using gestures to say, no, I live west, right?
Yeah.
So same question as before. From this interaction, do you think the doctor would believe that maybe Jerry can make decisions about his own healthcare, or at least participate in the discussions?
Most definitely.
Most definitely. And the only changes that were made were by the communication partner. The person with aphasia followed their lead, right?
Well, it's like leading, even like with people with dementia. I remember when I would go see my uncle, I'd be like, hey, Uncle Jimmy, it's me, Linda, your favorite niece. So it was like bait.
Yeah. And certainly you want to engage them in something that is lighthearted, that is fun, that is interesting to them.
Yes.
The minute that the doctor was talking, the doctor even sort of blew past, oh, that's where I'm from, and sort of threw that sentence away. But did Jerry catch it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's because it's something that means something to him. He's like, all right, yeah. Are you from there? Yeah.
Well, the doctor was much more smiling the second time too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to try to work harder with somebody to help me if they're smiling at me than if they have a face on.
Absolutely. So I know that I'm at the end of my time. So I just want to impart a couple things. That communication is not just speech. We communicate in a whole bunch of different ways. And if we do it, a person with aphasia or with a person with a communication disorder will get a lot more information about what we're expressing, and then it'll empower them to use it as well. So if I leave you with 4 tips and 1 for extra credit, these are the 4 tips I want to leave you with. Have patience. Just some patience and some empathy, slow down, use straightforward languages. We don't need to convolute the language, and remove distractions whenever possible. If there's something that's happening in the background, it's going to make it more difficult for the person with a communication order to process and to express themselves. And then use those tools.
Yeah,
So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your insight, for being willing to share your embarrassing moments. You shouldn't feel embarrassed. It's just the way that our system is built, and that's why I'm out here to educate. If you know somebody with aphasia or any communication disorder, please take my phone number and email address down. We can help. Voices of Hope for Aphasia is here for anything. Education, programs for people with aphasia, programs for the caregivers, and even referrals to speech therapy.
Yeah.
Or to Linda.
there was one last question here. I think it's worth
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
Is it helpful or hurtful to fill in words when people are struggling?
Yeah, that is a brilliant question. So the answer is help only if you think that you know, but always be dictated by the person. So my response is, before I blurt something out and cut them off, because if you remember all those steps, we can interrupt those steps. And if you give them the
Right.
wrong one, they might lose it. But ask, can I help? Do you need help? Let them tell you whether or not they
Very
want.
good. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, my friend, for being here today.
Thank you, Linda.
You really brought a lot of good information to our public here.
Yeah.
And we'll talk again soon, honey. Have a delicious
Yeah.
day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow, that was pretty powerful. I learned a whole bunch more things that I didn't know before, which always makes me happy.